In a few hours, one of the most eagerly awaited video games finally goes on sale.
Preparing to rewrite retail history.
Video game is expected to have bigger first-day revenues than any movie has ever had an opening day at the box office.
Biggest retail launch in entertainment history.
Dozens of grown men and probably about 3 women have crawled out of their parents' basements tonight to be first in line to buy the new video game Halo 2.
Video gamers across the country are anxiously awaiting the midnight release of a game called Halo 2.
45 minutes and counting for Halo 2 to go on sale.
There was only one chip.
One? Are you sure?
Yes. There was nothing I could do.
The fleet that destroyed Reach was 50 times this size.
I need a weapon.
Right this way.
There are few sequels that come out as strong and booming as Halo 2. But the question is, how do you build a worthy sequel off of a masterpiece like Combat Evolved, especially when no sequel or trilogy was planned in the first place? Bungie answered that, with a greater emphasis on story, world building, an outrageous hype train, and a multiplayer that would forever change the face of Xbox and online gaming. No game up to this point had come out as guns a-blazing as Halo 2 did, and it brought with it some of the sickest fucking guitar riffs known to man. So sick, they even added the Halo 2 theme to Guitar Hero 3, the most popular video game of 2007. This game is what cemented Halo as a serious contender in the gaming market. It made Master Chief a recognizable icon. It was one of the first games to really take on a more cinematic, movie-like approach with its campaign. Halo 2 even had the balls to cast big-name actors like Ron Perlman, Keith David, Kevin Michael Richardson, who has been in everything, as well as propelling voice actors like Jen Taylor and Steve Downes into famous paragons of the video game industry. Halo 2 was so fucking cool. They had bands create music for the game, like Breaking Benjamin, Incubus, and Hoobastank. In fact, Breaking Benjamin didn't receive a penny for having Blow Me Away in the game. They did it for free, for publicity, which certainly paid off as the song would be used in hundreds of mediocre montages across the globe. If Halo CE was the golden child, then Halo 2 was the badass younger brother that just didn't give a fuck. But it ain't all sunshine and rainbows. Upon its release, Halo 2 was praised, but not without a heap of criticism aimed at its story, campaign, level design, the E3 demo that had shockingly little to do with the actual game, and who could forget that ending? Where Combat Evolved got universal praise, Halo 2 was seen as somewhat of a mixed bag. To make matters worse, since its release, the comically hellish development has been revealed. With such wild controversy and praise surrounding Halo 2, it's time we pack an extra SMG, become the Arbiter, and BXR our way straight into this. So right off the bat, Halo 2 starts where we ended in Combat Evolved, though not exactly in the same place. This is the first time we ever learn anything about the Covenant that isn't just aliens in space. Your ears and eyes are glued to the screen as the events of Halo are recounted by the Covenant in a sort of trial. This opening is fucking brilliant for several reasons. 1. We gain a better understanding of our enemy. We see the Covenant has its own society, rules, leaders, and hierarchy. 2. It allows people who didn't play the first game to get a brief understanding of what happened. 3. It adds more context to the events of the first game and gives motivation to the Covenant. 4. It sets the stage for Arbiter's conflict with the Chief. 5. We see that Captain Keyes' legacy lives on through his daughter Miranda. And 6. The consequences of our actions are being laid out before us, so what we did in the last game is having an immediate effect on this one. I mean, you can't ask for much more in an opening cutscene. It also plants the seeds for the character arc of the Arbiter. Showing the Covenant's perspective is only half of the game, and as the cutscenes progress, we get a great dichotomy. The UNSC is celebrating their victory, while the Covenant is enacting punishment for the Arbiter's failure. You get a sense of what both sides are about in just a few sentences, and with some nice imagery.
There can be no greater heresy. Let him be an example for all who would break our covenant.
Both sides are so similar in structure. Lord Hood's equivalent are the Prophets, Master Chief to the Arbiter, Tartarus to Johnson, but the Covenant are far more fanatical. They're basically like if the Catholic Church acquired incredibly sophisticated technology, and then if there were 3 popes that all started calling themselves gods and conquering other worlds. With badass names like Truth, Mercy, and Regret, we get a sense of the Covenant hierarchy and what makes them tick. And the classic graphics, this scene where Arbiter walks down the hall was one of the first times a video game actually looked like a movie to me. The lighting, the music, the dialogue, everything just screamed cinematic.
We want our game to look like a movie. We want it to look like something that's just unbelievable to experience.
They marketed Halo 2 like a movie, and it paid off like a movie, breaking the world record for most revenue generated by an entertainment product in the first 24 hours. This game outgrossed Dead Man's Chest, just to put that in perspective. And what Blur did with the remastered cutscenes is basically how I saw this game back in 2004. The story for Halo 2 grew out of all the elements that weren't seen in Combat Evolved.
This process began with the end of Halo and realizing all the stuff that we had left out. In Halo 1, we focused on the humans' perspective, their fate at the hands of the Covenant, but we never really got too much into the Covenant side of the story itself.
What are the motivations of the Flood, the Covenant, and how does it all tie together? What is the bigger picture beyond the one Halo ring? This game certainly had a great beginning, but delving behind the scenes opened up a whole can of lickalolo worms.
The Bungie process of making cool games has worked up until now, but is it possible that there's an amount of pressure or an ambition that's beyond what we can actually do?
So if we're gonna talk Halo 2 campaign, then we gotta talk about the development of it, as that shapes much of what is right and wrong with Halo 2. The notorious yet brilliant E3 trailer took 7 months for Bungie to complete, and showed much of the game that would later be scrapped and described as all smoke and mirrors.
What you good people are about to see is an operation in progress. This is a real-time feed. No smoke and mirrors pre-recorded bullshit.
This whole section had to be cut, as the Xbox couldn't handle that environment, couldn't render it. The cliffhanger ending was a result of massive story cuts because of being forced to ship the game on time.
No, we can't wait another year, I'm sorry, we can't wait. This game has to come out now.
It's really great to have this deadline that we can't move at all because it forces us to kind of finish it. When the producers come over and pry our hands from the keyboard and say, okay, you can't touch it anymore, we've got to start manufacturing these discs, I think that's the point where we're going to have to stop, and that's going to be the end of it.
And many Bungie employees felt the lack of polish at release was a result of Halo 2's shortcomings. There is seemingly no end to the ideas and features that were cut from Halo 2 because of time constraints and a deadly ambition.
You know, what I knew about the campaign was they probably cut, at least a third of the total game, maybe as much as half, I don't honestly know. And that's why Halo 2 ended up with such a jarring ending.
It's truly staggering. There were plans for a whole level to be on a Covenant ship, but instead they had to settle for this awesome cutscene. There were those Flood Juggernaut forms found hidden in the files, and so on. It makes you wonder, what if? What if this game had launched the way Bungie intended it? Well, it probably would have been one of the greatest games of all time without a doubt, and I think it still is. But I can understand why some Halo fans were upset when the game didn't launch the way they expected. Bungie had made a lot of promises and didn't fulfill them all, which is typical for game development. Quite frankly, I think it's a miracle that Halo 2 released in the state it did. But however upset you might have been, or still are with Halo 2, I don't think anyone was more upset than Bungie themselves.
I don't think anybody in this world has ever done anything worthwhile without being there own worst critic.
We messed up. Like, we didn't have the design down, we didn't have the story down.
Once we actually started to see how long the missions were taken to produce and how long they were taken to design and script, and it just wasn't going to work.
After doing extensive research into Halo 2's development, it seems the cause of the massive cuts was Bungie's own optimism and ambition. No real malice behind it, just bad luck mixed with a strong desire to make the most epic sequel ever. Despite the hell they went through, I'd say they achieved what they set out to do, for the most part.
It was extremely challenging to wrap all those different, ambitious angles into one nice, smooth, polished product. And especially at the end for the campaign, there wasn't enough runway to land what we really wanted to land.
But when it comes to gameplay, you'd think it would be an automatic improvement. Were it not for the absurd legendary difficulty and at times piss-poor level design, I'd say it is. I love Halo 2 to death, but no matter how many times I've played it on Legendary, no matter how good I think I am, I always get pissed off, because it's just not fair. But life isn't fair, Actman. Just shut up. Games should be fair. When you got level design that's so bad, and enemies that are so strong you can literally die before you even see your fucking crosshair appear, you know something is wrong. There really is no sweet spot for Halo 2 difficulty-wise. I've tried it on Heroic with a variety of skulls, but it doesn't have that perfection that Combat Evolved did, where each difficulty feels like exactly what it's supposed to be. And for whatever reason, probably time constraints. Quick note, anytime something in Halo 2 feels off, 99% of the time it's time constraints. But for whatever reason, Bungie decided to simplify the gameplay. No health bar, regenerating health, and this took away one of the best parts of CE. When you had a full bar of health, you could afford to play recklessly, and you could get away with some pretty crazy shit. You strategized around your health bar and available health packs. But in Halo 2 they said, fuck all that, you don't get no stinking health bar. I can think of no better way to illustrate and prove the ludicrous difficulty of Halo 2 than this. So, in Halo 1, it takes exactly 23 shots to kill you with a plasma rifle. Now, do you have any idea how many it takes in Halo 2? You want a hint? 6. 6 fucking shots, and you're dead. They shoot the guns faster, too. A single burst can kill you in less than a second. What the flip yap is this? Warzone firefight? The exact time to kills I recorded just by standing still was 10.25 seconds for CE and 1.6 seconds for Halo 2. I mean, what in truth's name happened? Well, from what I understand, the development of Halo 2, as we all know, was hellish at best. So in a time crunch, Bungie realized the game wasn't difficult enough, but didn't have time to properly balance and tweak the number of enemies and how tough they were. So what they did was ramp up the lethality, as they didn't have time to go through every encounter to rebalance it. So what we got was a frustrating and difficult legendary experience. And if you'd like an in-depth video on what makes it so difficult, keep your eyes peeled for an incoming collab with HokeyBird428. Why is Halo 2's campaign so difficult? And Sniper Jackals? I don't got shit to say about those guys. Their reputation as one of the most deadly enemies in video game history speaks for itself. Let's not forget co-op had increased difficulty because if either person died, it reset to checkpoint. As if Legendary wasn't difficult enough without a permanent Iron Skull on. But even with its absurd difficulty, the level design is for the most part inferior to Combat Evolved. Remember all those big areas with vehicles that made the world feel expansive and open? Well, a lot of the sections became incredibly linear or condensed into smaller, tighter locations. There are some standouts like the Banshee fights in Heretic or the tank part in Delta Halo, but I don't understand why these levels don't offer you more paths to move around, a wider open area, or that expansive explorer type feeling you got in CE. Don't get me wrong, the level design isn't terrible, it's just not as good as CE, and a badass younger brother like Halo 2 should have nailed that. But good news is there are hardly any repeated sections like Combat Evolved had. Of course, those are just the negative points, and for me it's much more enjoyable on Heroic, with the Mythic Skull on. The amount of new sandbox elements in Halo 2 is unreal. Dual wielding always felt so satisfying, and just blasting things to bits. The guy's on the front cover with 2 SMGs, bro. And what I loved most was adding the Sentinel Beam and Energy Sword as weapons for the player to use. It was like, oh yeah, those awesome cool weapons you saw in the first game, now you can use them. You got Covenant Carbine, snipers, Brute Plasma Rifles, Brute Shot Grenade Launchers, the Gauss Warthog Spectre, boosts for the Ghosts and Banshees, ability to pilot the Wraith, new turrets, the Phantoms. It was all great stuff. And of course all the new types of enemies. White Elites and Grunts, Brutes, Drones, Jetpack Elites, Sentinels with shields and a stronger weapon, those giant-ass robots, the Enforcers. They could pick up your vehicle and squish you like a bug. Hunters no longer had that pitiful one-shot weakness and were buffed with improved melee attacks and a freaking beam cannon. Some elite flood forms had shields. I mean, whatever you say about Halo 2, you can't say it didn't feel new, or add in a bunch of new awesome stuff. Now think back to CE and what the levels were like. Basically everything was rooted in place. You couldn't move anything. But Halo 2 added movable objects, things you could manipulate, things you could destroy. As vehicles took damage, they'd have chunks and debris flying off. I mean, that was really cool stuff. It might seem somewhat simple now, but holy shit, did that create an immersive world, where you can just run around, hit stuff, and watch it fly all over the place. And it's crazy to think a lot of FPS games, even released today, don't have this type of environmental interaction. Fights between factions are back, making gameplay fun, dynamic, and not always a you versus them sort of gameplay. And though awesome, it's not as grandiose in scale as Combat Evolved. And when I talked with Hardy LaBelle, the lead designer of Combat Evolved's multiplayer, he said that Bungie had seen GTA Vice City, and they were so enthralled by the idea of vehicle jacking, they added it into Halo, which was freaking awesome. And it was a good way to balance vehicles and give players on foot more options. Also, the AI of your allies was vastly improved. Now your teammates actually contributed and helped out, instead of firing 3-round bursts every 5 minutes from a 60-round gun. Smart players utilize this new mechanic of giving your allies guns in order to maximize kill potential and survivability. This added a new layer of strategy that made replaying the levels so fun. And holy mother of Poseidon, there's a part where you get to fight with goddamn hunters. That right there is the most badass awesome thing in existence. 10 out of 10. Halo 2 also added boss fights, a first for the series that would never really be fleshed out in the later games, except for Scarabs and Guilty Spark in Halo 3 and Warden Eternal in Halo 5. And we all know how that went.
System lock.
While not the greatest example of boss fights in FPS games, you gotta respect the ambition. The bosses you fought were more impactful because you, the player, had to take them down, which is much more satisfying than watching a cutscene. Honestly, if Halo 2 had the same satisfying, fair difficulty that Combat Evolved did, I'd say it's the best game in the series. No question. Because this game added so many new weapons, vehicles, elements, sandbox tools, but it's not as easy to enjoy all of that when the game, for me, is either too hard or too easy. And that's Halo 2's most critical fault.
People identify with humans. People care about humans more. So we really have to put the Arbiter in a position in the story where he matters and where the player cares about him.
You want to look at this guy and you want to see that, wow, he's just as cool as the Master Chief.
Depending on your view, one of Halo 2's best or worst additions was being able to play as the Arbiter.
We are the arm of the prophets, Arbiter, and you are the blade.
The Arbiter was one of Halo 2's most controversial additions, as people wanted and expected to play as the Chief. Quite frankly, I'd agree with them. That is, if Arbiter wasn't such a badass, likable character.
Drawn quite a crowd. If they came to hear me beg, they will be disappointed.
Bungie had huge balls to go forward with this decision of a campaign split between two perspectives, but it ultimately paid off. The Arbiter is to elites what Chief is to humans. Both are revered, iconic figures that carry the weight and hopes of their people. And this is fitting, given that elites were always meant to be your equal. Now Chief has one. Now there is that idea that Halo 2 had false marketing and showed a game or story that people expected, like saving Earth and all of that, but it wasn't false marketing. Obviously they omitted the role of Arbiter because that was a twist.
As the player at the start of the game, you don't realize that you're actually going to play this elite general who's been disgraced, but you get this quick glimpse at, that's the flip side of what happened to the Covenant at the end of the first game. A couple levels into the game, you realize, oh my god, I get to play this guy.
And the same thing goes for the Gravemind and the Flood. Of course, we see in these trailers that the defense of Earth was meant to be a big subject, and it's not like it didn't have any screen time or missions in the campaign that we got, but it was downplayed. So no, Halo 2 didn't have any false marketing. And these two characters are glimpses into both sides of this giant war. And instead of viewing it as a boring, one-sided, aliens are bad, humans good, the addition of the Arbiter allows this conflict to be fleshed out.
This time around, it's essentially we're telling two stories that simultaneously. We're going back and forth from level to level.
So just to illustrate how important Thel 'Vadamee is, let's imagine how different Halo 2 would be without him. We'd have nobody on the opposing side to relate to or guide us through the Covenant, and because Shipmaster is such a crucial point of Arbiter's character arc, he'd be scrapped too. And without the story of Halo 2 having a larger emphasis on the Covenant side, I don't think playable elites ever would have been a thing in Halo. The Covenant Civil War would be trashed, and what we'd be left with is 4 villains we know next to nothing about, and a plot that would be the exact same as Combat Evolved. Without Arbiter, we completely lose any understanding or empathy of the Covenant. So I think Halo 2 is better off with the Arbiter, as we gain so much from his presence, especially a great rivalry between two pinnacles of badass.
Relax. I'd rather not piss this thing off. Demon.
What makes Halo 2's story so awesome, you ask? Well, it's the characters, of course. They all serve a purpose, they all got motivations, friends, enemies, rivals. They're all likable, whether hero or villain. It doesn't matter how deep the lore is, or how complexly woven the universe is if we don't have characters that we can understand or relate to. So let's take a look at Halo 2's cast. Chief is more or less the same, but this time around he's got some brand new armor and a chip on his shoulder. He's like, yeah, I fucking destroyed that ring that was gonna kill everything, yeah, fuck yeah, yeah. Chief barely speaks in this game. In fact, I think he's only got 15 lines of dialogue, but his character is shown through his actions and what's happening around him. Not to mention, this guy has the best freaking one-liners.
Just one question. What if you miss?
I won't.
Cortana, who I think looks coolest in the OG graphics, has a new haircut and is back with her signature wit and cunning. She always has a plan, and she always has a backup plan. Then we got Johnson, who works as the comic relief alongside Cortana. He helps you out from time to time, and always keeps the troops motivated, like a real sergeant would. Miranda and Lord Hood mostly serve as exposition, and what they say usually raises the stakes, or reveals the danger. And this is fine, because not every character needs to be as deep and complex as Harry Potter. Guilty Spark is back, but his screen time was reduced. He reveals the truth to both the Heretics, Arbiter, and Tartarus. He also helps you out in the final level with shutting down the ring. Of course, the Marines, Grunts, Elites, Brutes all got their own personas and add some personality, charm, and comedy to the gameplay. Now, the Gravemind is viewed by many as a controversial, unnecessary character. People thought this Venus flytrap being the brains of the Flood eliminated any mystery behind the Flood. But I say, we had the mystery in the first game, and that was good enough. So now we're like, oh holy fuck, this is the King of the Flood? Definitely one of the coolest video game characters, and its existence makes sense when we look back at what happened to Captain Keyes, who was going to become a new Gravemind. Just the idea of thousands of sentient beings clumped together with their knowledge and memories to create and fuel this abomination with only the goal of consuming all life in the galaxy, I mean, that's fucking scary and creepy. Without the Gravemind, a second appearance of the Flood would have just turned them into cliché space zombies, so he's a welcome addition to the cast. Tartarus is the big brute that helps characterize and give insight into this new formidable race, a violent, barbaric, alien species that roam in packs. That huge-ass gravity hammer shows that he means business, and he serves no one but the hierarchs, looking to prove himself and his race as superior to the elites. The heretic leader represents a side of the Covenant that disbanded, seeing through the lies and manipulation of the prophets. Fighting these heretics sets the stage for Arbiter to learn the truth and do what's right. The hierarchs are basically space popes, as I said before. They rule with religious fanaticism, regret being younger and more reckless, mercy being older and wise, and truth being the in-between manipulator of all. He's cunning and vicious and will use any means necessary to achieve power. Finally, we've got Arbiter, who has the deepest character arc, starting off as a supreme commander, then stripped of his rank, his honor and pride, subjugated to torture and humiliation in front of a huge crowd. He learns to find new purpose in serving the hierarchs as the Arbiter, but he isn't accepted by Shipmaster Tartarus, eventually coming face to face with the man who destroyed everything he had. Everyone expects him to die, but as the story progresses, both Tartarus and Shipmaster gain some respect for him. Near the end, there's a moment when Arbiter is talking to Tartarus, and you can tell he doesn't want to fight. He wants Tartarus to learn and understand the truth so it can come to a peaceful resolution. But the stubborn brute can't accept that he's been manipulated and serving a lie, so he snaps. You see, every character represents a point of view from a different group in the Halo universe. Because of this, we see and understand so much more about what it is we're taking part in. All these characters work and play off each other to form a cohesive universe and make it feel real.
Dear humanity, we regret being alien bastards. We regret coming to Earth. And we most definitely regret the Corps just blew up our raggedy-ass fleet. Hoorah!
Please use caution. This reclaimer is delicate.
One more word, Oracle, and I'll rip your eye from its socket.
The dialogue in Halo 2 gets its own section because of how absolutely brilliant it is, and how incredible the voice acting and delivery is.
This is not your grave, but you are welcome in it.
Man, how the hell did you make those? Oh wait, that's D. Bradley Baker. Oh man, that guy's known for making all sorts of crazy noises with his mouth. Those of you that have ever written your own stories or fan fiction know that dialogue is one of the hardest things to do well. Without a doubt, this game has some of the best writing I've ever seen in a video game. Nearly every line is quotable, memorable, and memeable. If I had to narrow down the list of quotes to use in this video, it'd probably be about 80% of Halo 2's story. One vivid memory I have playing this game with my friends was the speech Halfjaw gives to his troops. The first time I saw this, my buddy had recited this speech verbatim as it played, and that's when I realized what the characters were saying was so powerful.
On the blood of our fathers, on the blood of our sons, we swore to uphold the Covenant, even to our dying breath.
The dialogue in Halo 2 does everything. It makes you feel like a badass.
Your pal. Where's he going?
It makes you laugh.
You told me there wouldn't be any cameras.
And you told me you were gonna wear something nice.
Makes you sad.
Tartarus, the prophets have betrayed us.
Makes you scared. And most important when it comes to video games, it gives you the information you need to know in an interesting way. Because let's be honest, exposition in video games is usually handled in the most boring, non-engaging, sleep-inducing way. But take this section here. Allow me to point out how brilliantly this is handled.
Ma'am, there's an object coming into view now.
Cortana, what exactly am I looking at?
That is another Halo.
Say what?
So this is what my father found.
Miranda's facial expression indicates something serious. We're wondering what she sees. She asks the question, and as the floating debris flies off screen to reveal the halo, Cortana says,
That is another Halo.
So this is what my father found.
Events are being repeated, and the twist that there are more Halo rings was honestly unexpected and mind-blowing at the time. Johnson's surprise is meant to mimic the surprise we, the audience, feel in the moment, and the way his cigar falls out of his mouth adds a little bit of comedy too. There's so much packed into every moment of Halo 2's story, I could describe it for hours.
Sir, permission to leave the station.
For what purpose, Master Chief?
To give the Covenant back their bomb.
Permission granted.
I love this because Lord Hood starts off all serious, then he's just like, alright, fuck it. The game opts for a less is more style of storytelling. For example, with 2 lines of dialogue, Halo 2 shows us that the Arbiter is a highly important rank with a long history.
Do you know where we are?
The mausoleum of the Arbiter.
Quite so. Here rests the vanguard of the great journey. Every Arbiter from first to last. Each one created and consumed in times of extraordinary crisis.
And with this line by Mercy, we learn that the formation of the Covenant came with numerous conflicts.
The taming of the Hunters, the Grunt Rebellion. Were it not for the Arbiters, the Covenant would have broken long ago.
With the location these characters are in and the few lines of dialogue they say, we learn so much about the story and the universe. These key points serve as excellent areas to flesh out an expanded material. So now as a player, you're thinking about the bigger picture. How was the Covenant formed? You become curious about stuff like that. Now it's one thing to write good dialogue, but it adds a whole new layer when the body language of a character reflects what they are expressing. When Arbiter says,
I am already dead.
Indeed.
We see the great shame in his body language. He's groveling, covering his mark of shame. We see Thelvadamy at his most vulnerable, in the presence of the Hierarchs and his people's most sacred role.
Even on my knees, I do not belong in their presence.
Halo 2 is also good with the subtle moments, like when Shipmaster is given his speech, the grunts are kinda fucking around. Then in another scene we see a grunt slip while he's trying to get on a turret. You might think these are inconsequential details, but they reinforce the role of the grunt. And these details are all over Halo 2, from the way the different characters move, react, and it's especially well captured in the remastered cutscenes, making their facial expressions much more realistic. One of the coolest details about Halo 2 that you probably didn't notice was when Shipmaster is given his speech, all the other elites are reciting it, and you see their mouths moving. But in this scene, we see Arbiter isn't. This small detail shows us that Arbiter is not one of them. He's something of an outcast, which is reinforced in the coming dialogue.
This armor suits you, but it cannot hide that mark. Nothing ever will. You are the Arbiter, the will of the prophets. But these are my elites. Their lives matter to me, yours does not. That makes 2 of us.
There's a reason why you hang on to every word that is said in Halo 2. Of course it's well written, but each character has a different way of expressing themselves. They have unique, discernible personalities. It's short, sweet, and none of it is without purpose. If there is a golden standard for dialogue in video games, and especially first-person shooters, this is it.
Chief, when you get to Earth, good luck.
After I'm through with truth.
Don't make a girl a promise if you know you can't keep it.
There's a lot of stuff that happens in Halo 2. It almost borders on being too much, but the game strikes a nice balance, and it neither spends too much or too little time on one plot point. It's a split focus. As Chief, you gotta defend Earth, and you discover a new ring. You move in to take out one of the prophets to cripple the Covenant. Then you get captured and have to track down the Index to prevent the ring from firing. On the flip side, as the Arbiter, you work with the Covenant allies to quell the heretics. Then you must retrieve the sacred icon. Figure out the truth. Get betrayed.
Betrayal. Betrayed.
And finally, mount up with Shipmaster to stop Tartarus from activating the ring. But because we're switching sides and there's so much going on, and the cut content, some things aren't really explained. Like how the Covenant found Earth or how Guilty Spark ended up with the heretics. But thankfully, many of these gaps were filled in the terminals. And great job by 343 on expanding the story and background of a game we all love. We get to see the taming of the Hunters, the heretics learning the truth, the history of the Arbiter and Thelvadamy, how important his role is. we see the Grunt Rebellion, and who knew we could feel empathy for such hideous creatures. And the way this Arbiter hands a plasma pistol to this Grunt leader, it brings a tear to my eye, and gives new respect to what I used to see as nothing but lowly cannon fodder. One of the reasons Halo 2's story turned out the way it did is because writer Joe Staten kept pushing for more and more. He kept pushing the boundaries, and I think his immense passion to tell this story, this vision he had, to share it with the world, is part of the reason why the story of Halo 2 is as good as it is.
We're actually pretty good at slamming stuff in right at the end. As a matter of fact, I think we do some of our best work that way.
Now, of course, there is the ending, and actually, I made a whole video on that ending. So if you want to hear me talk about that, check it out. It's a plot that keeps your attention from start to finish, never loses momentum, it never gets dull. You're jumping around throughout a lot of levels, but every section is just as entertaining as the last. If there's one thing that sticks with me from Halo 2's story, it's the amount of feels I felt while feeling. Nothing says good storytelling like a wide range of emotions that you feel while experiencing it. And Marty O'Donnell, our Lord and Savior, praise his name, absolutely kills it with the soundtrack. And I mean kills it. If I was stranded on an island with only one Halo soundtrack, it'd be Halo 2. I'll never forget the excitement I felt when those drop pods crashed on Delta Halo, or how worried I was when Chief got blasted into the water, or that holy fuck I get to use the energy sword moment. Working with Steve Vai and Michael Salvatore, Marty created a soundtrack with so many unique pieces that flow with the gameplay and cutscenes. Like when Tartarus and the Brutes are dragging Arbiter to the Prophets, and that slow, creepy drumming beat serves to characterize the vast and mysterious city of High Charity. What makes this campaign and story memorable is it has so many of those moments that stick with you. Vivid moments. For example, when you start the mission Uprising and Arbiter looks at a bloody rock to pick up a plasma pistol, it sets the stage for what you're about to see. The Brutes have betrayed the elites and massacred them. You're able to feel empathy and sadness just by the visuals and music, without a single word being said. This is why I made such a big deal about Show Don't Tell in my Halo 5 review. Compare and contrast these two tragedies, alright? We are shown the elites are being massacred, but in Halo 5 we are told 4 colonies have been destroyed by the Guardians. Alright, when you're in the shoes of a character and you experience something firsthand, it's way more impactful than having it told to you.
By the prophets, what have these brutes done? They have shed our brother's blood, and for that they must die.
Halo 2 is chock full of these moments, like you'll see the mausoleum of the Arbiter in one cutscene, then later in the game you'll fight through that area as the Chief, or in the first cutscene we see the Arbiter's trial, and then in Gravemind we start the mission there, so the game feels connected and these locations leave an imprint on us.
Boo.
Speaking of which, the Covenant technology and High Charity in general just looks so fucking fantastic. Now, a narrative like this becomes much more powerful when it gives you something to think about, or more importantly, when it teaches you something. It may be difficult to hold on to what we believed in, but better to admit we've been living or serving a lie than to keep pretending otherwise. That's what Arbiter taught me, when to admit I'm wrong. What would the world be like if it were ruled entirely by religion? There's more than what I listed here, but I want you to think about what the greater message behind Halo 2 is and share it in the comments. It's kinda hard to explain, but you just feel a lot of emotion when you play through Halo 2, and that's a sign that the story and game has made a connection. Now, this video is mostly about the campaign, but it's worth noting that Halo 2 cemented the series as a serious contender and franchise. It's what really made Master Chief the face of the Xbox and the cultural icon he is today. And none of this would have been possible if it weren't for the robust multiplayer and Xbox Live that kept people coming back. Giving players the ability to play as elites and customize them with the different colors and emblems that showed up on your armor. I mean, that shit was awesome. It was revolutionary. And it was mind-blowing to play games of Halo online on a console for the first time ever. And it was this jump into online multiplayer that would fuel gaming culture, and hundreds of other games and companies would follow suit, trying to emulate Halo 2's success. Overall, Halo 2 may have a campaign with no perfect difficulty, it may have promised too many things it didn't deliver, it might not have had as good of level design as CE, but what it does have is the best story in the series. A story that makes you feel, interesting new enemies to fight and weapons to kill them with, and characters and dialogue that you'll remember for years. And that is why Halo 2's campaign is so awesome.